trying to put something at the end and use the type of technology that tries to capture everything using a physical process. And I think that's where we're largely going with the CRD at this stage. It's yet to be seen, but certainly there's a lot of invisible pollution that we find out many years later about, and the regulations quite often lag the technology and the products by many years as well. It's my hope that we can put a sewer system in place here in Victoria that is, well, I'm not sure I'd call it cost effective, but gives us some value for our money and actually captures these things and other things that have yet to become a problem. And hopefully won't be, because we'll have something in place that can capture them and deal with them in an environmentally responsible manner. So with that, I'd like to call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, well, that ends our normal council meeting. I'll look for a motion to adjourn council and move to committee of the whole. Moving second, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed? And as our usual practice, I'll invite the acting mayor to sit with committee of the whole chair. That will be council work on tonight.
There was a time when the mayor had the larger desk, but Chief tonight he has a smaller one, so.
Well, I have a larger desk now.
This time I'd like to call tonight's committee of the whole to order, and I'd like to welcome each one of you here who's taken the time to come out and to share and to listen to what is being shared tonight. And the procedure for the committee of the whole is as follows. I'll ask the clerk to introduce the item, and after which council will be given an opportunity to ask questions of staff. Then the applicant will be invited to come forward and make a presentation to us and to you. After that, members of the public will be invited to come forward. And when you come forward, if you could give your name and address, and if you would keep your comments for 5 minutes, we would appreciate it. After everyone's had an opportunity to speak, the applicant would be given an opportunity to come forward and answer any questions that have been asked, and after which council will debate the item and vote on it, and we'll move on to the next. Thank you, and Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This only item on committee of the whole this evening is 3934 Quadra Street. It's a development permit amendment. The report of the Director of Planning is recommending that Council approve the development permit amendment for proposed changes to the building entrance and construction of exterior structures for the self-storage facility with variances requested for landscaping, parking, and maneuvering aisle. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Would the applicant like to come forward, please?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much for considering this application before you this evening. I'd like to first start by thanking staff and specific members of council who've engaged quite a lot with both ourselves and people in this neighborhood and this community regarding this application. Not all of you were present November 16, 2015, when we had our first meeting in this venue, where a substantial amount of people within the neighboring community raised concerns, significant concerns that we had not fully heard before. And it was because of those concerns that we took an opportunity after that to engage in a public open house and to try and start a dialogue for what we can do to improve not only the application that is before you that you're considering, but some other issues that pertained to other tenants that are also occupying space at 3934 Quadra Street. So on December 12th, 2015, we held a public open house at the location and showed proposed changes from the previous application for input and consideration from the neighborhood and the community. We had about 40 or 50 people present at that, including a few members of council. And at that we heard a lot of feedback, a lot of which pertained to things that weren't a part of the application. But a lot of it was good feedback regardless. We had Tim Urquhart, the president of Sleg's Lumber, was present and able to answer a lot of questions about their business and what the impact that their business was having on those neighbors. And subsequent to that, there have been changes that Sleg has implemented into their business to try and mitigate the negative impact that their business may be having on that neighborhood. They have actually instigated a good neighbor policy within their employees. So when they do their employee reviews on a quarterly basis, that is actually now a part of the judging that goes on for their staff evaluations. Sleg's has changed their hours of operations to minimize the time in which they're open, and decided that they will be closed on Saturdays so that there will be no disruption on the weekend for residents. Sleg's has now also committed, thank you to John Smuck from the Quadra Cedar Hill Neighborhood Association, as he brought forward technology that has been implemented at UVic in order to minimize the sound of backup beepers on the forklifts and other equipment that they utilize in their operation. And Sleg's has actually ordered that equipment, that technology, so they can minimize the noise disruption during their operation to the surrounding neighborhood. So I'd like to commend Sleg's for their efforts that they've made in trying to minimize what they can do. They've also committed that when their forklifts need to be replaced in any one of their 13 locations, that they're going to replace it with an electric forklift, but doesn't have the same noise as a propane forklift. And in doing so, they will move the operating forklift from 39th Quadra to one of their other 13 locations and bring in a new electric forklift. So that's a commitment they've made, and we're very pleased that they're cooperating in such a manner. We've made changes to the application that we feel quite comfortable about, and we have the support of quite a number of neighbors in respect to, and that is we've removed the proposed shipping container vestibule addition onto the Quadra Street frontage. That was a controversial item that some people were very supportive of and others were very not supportive of. And we've also removed the setback for the side yard variance from our residential neighbors to asking for a setback to not asking for a setback, and increased the landscape buffer zone between us and them. That would be the LC Lane strata, a member of which is here this evening, Michael Goodwin, who I know has written a letter of support, and we have gone from them being very opposed to this application to being very supportive of this application. But there's challenges. We're a M1 zone next to a number of different residential zones, and so we recognize that there are issues associated with what permitted uses are allowed under M1 zoning. And we've engaged in the dialogue over the last several months to try and figure out what we can do to minimize that. And we're quite happy with some of the changes we've been able to implement to date. A number of the concerns raised at both the last council hearing as well as the public open house were safety concerns. There's a gate that exits onto Quadra Street, which you may recall was quite a topic of conversation in the last hearing. That gate was raised by way of safety concern. Vehicles coming early in the morning to Sleg's, which is the only tenant within the property that utilizes that gate, and they have the right to access that gate. And that gate is the only direct access to the property, I might say, that doesn't go through a neighboring property. We have one other access point on Quadra Street, which goes through a shared easement agreement. What we've done in order to try and minimize the impact to neighbors, there was a couple of issues. One was the safety concerns. So what we've done is we've implemented signage that is essentially drive slow. This is a residential neighborhood, respect your neighbors. We painted a stop line at the gate as you exit and installed a stop sign itself so that so vehicles will exit slowly. We've also installed 2 speed bumps as you exit. So in order to further slow vehicles if they aren't paying attention to the signage that has been installed and provided. We have made that access a exit only, so there's no longer vehicles being backed up onto Holford Street in order to try and get in and pick up their materials from Sleg's. So there's do not enter signs that have been applied to the exterior. There is do not enter been painted on the ground, and Sleg's has committed in informing their customers that this is now a exit only gate. We know that these changes that have been implemented to date have been very well received and have helped to mitigate problems that we were made aware of. But we are in a position now where we're looking to make the further improvements that are before you this evening. We have made commitments to, from the change from last time, to now put cedar fencing to match that's on Holford along the southwest property line to the strata behind us, which will mitigate the visual impact. But something that's not on the application that just was decided a few days ago is the 2.6 meter landscape buffer that is on our side of that new proposed opaque cedar fencing. We have committed to installing irrigation and putting in a 12-foot hedge that will further block the visual view of anything in that area. That was a conversation that had been taking place for some time with some residents of that strata, Sharon, who was present here, and we've come to an agreement that that's a supported item that will create a visual further screen for them to have in between our M1 property and their residential property. So, in summary, we have, I believe, made significant progress, and would like to thank those that have contributed to us in that dialogue. And we have support of a number of people, and in particular, the Elsie Lane Strata we have support of, and they are the people that are in closest proximity to the proposed outdoor storage area, within probably somewhere between 15, 20, and 25 meters for their homes. And we believe that despite the fact we know there is dispute amongst whether we should receive support for this application, that they being the closest neighbor, they being the neighbor who could be the most negatively impacted by their proximity, being supportive should carry some weight when it's a dispute amongst neighbors as to whether or not this will provide for a negative or positive impact. And the other uses that could be on this area of the property are not as passive as a self-storage use. That's one of the things that this application will allow us to be able to continue to do. If we are successful and you do approve this application, it will assist us in being able to further our goal of converting the property over time into entirely self-storage, which is a much more passive use than a lumber yard or a bottle depot or any one of the other number of items that are permitted under M1 zoning. And so we ask for your consideration, we ask for your approval, and we hope that we've done a good job engaging with the community, and we promise to continue to engage as we are a business that relies on the neighborhood and the community for our customers. We're a self-storage facility. It's a geographic business, and so we have no intentions of being bad neighbors or bad corporate citizens. We have every intention on acting and doing as we say we will do. And so I'd just ask for your approval and ask for us to be able to move forward in making those further changes to better the lives of those that are surrounding this property. Thank you.
Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward at this time? And I would make a note that should there be any questions, I'll make a note of them. And when everyone has had a chance to speak, we will call on staff from the applicant to answer them. Thank you.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. My name is John Schmuck. I live at 1180 Rock Street. I'm speaking tonight as president of the Quadra City Hill Community Association. Our association consulted with the applicant in June 2014, almost 2 years ago, regarding the physical changes being requested for the property. And November 17, 2014, a year and a half ago, we sent a letter in listening our concerns as follows. We did not agree with the false door frontage proposed for the north side of the building, as we deemed it to be advertising and contrary to the spirit of the Saanich sign bylaw. Number 2, we expressed concern over the reduction of parking spaces. Number 3, with the scope of the investment being considered would likely seal the fate of the site for the next 20 years, thus removing it from comprehensive redevelopment that would better the community along the Quadra-Mackenzie corridor. That was the extent of our consultation at that point, and that was the extent of what we did up until the November meeting of last year. But missing from our remarks was a proper consultation with the neighbors who lived around the site. This is most evident after the last hearing by council at the November 16, 2015 meeting on this application, where the neighbors expressed their issues. Our association then backtracked to do the consultation with the neighbors that we should have done earlier in the process. We attended the public open house hosted by the proponents on December 12th. This was on a nasty, blustery, windy Saturday morning where there were 30 more neighbors. Jordan said 40 more. That probably is quite true because it was hard to keep track of who was coming and going. At that meeting, we made some proper connections there with the neighbors, and we resulted in the following interactions and consultations. We had numerous meetings and discussions with representatives of the neighbors from Elsie Lane and Greenridge Crescent, and plus well over 50 emails sent back and forth. We arranged a meeting with Saanich bylaw manager Graham Barber December 17th, along with the neighbors, to review the issues and ask for clarification of the actual bylaw regarding operating business in an industrial zone which is located within a surrounding residential area. We arranged a meeting with these neighbors and the manager of current planning, Jared Patanich, and planner Andrea Picard on January 13, 2016, regarding the details of the application. After this, along with the neighbors, we collaborated and put our heads together and came up with a good neighbor protocol. It was collaboratively written by our association and the neighbors, and it was sent to the applicant for their consideration. Essentially, I know I've emailed this to all of you in the past. I don't think it was part of your package here tonight, but the mission statement of this Good Neighbor Protocol is as follows: to allow the residents of the area to experience the peace, quiet, and enjoyment of their homes in conjunction with the viable business operations of 3934 Quadra Street. Suggestions for the Good Neighbor Protocol: just the hours of operation. We don't believe there should be 24/7 access. There should be restricted hours on weekends. Number 2, vehicle concerns. Access should be via the Quadra Street entrance. The use of Holford Street should be discouraged. The number of other issues there along the vehicle concerns. But getting on to noise. Operations on the site will be carried out with a minimum of noise. Restrict such activities as yelling, banging, and crashing of large items. Ensure the use of gates is quiet. Use of electric forklifts and so on. Number 4, maintain the aesthetic appeal of the site through the proper maintenance, appropriate use of signage in accordance with Saanich bylaws, and groundskeeping to community standards. A letter with the suggested protocol was emailed to the Milnes on February 1st, 2016. Warren Milne responded to me by email on February 10th, responding to the above, where they advised they could not agree to impose this protocol on their 5 tenants. We obtained information regarding the noiseless backup alarm systems used by UVic, and this came from Ron Prohl, who's the manager of operations at UVic. And we passed this on to the proponents. This resulted in a positive response from the tenant, Slag Lumbers, and we got that information by presentations UVic made to us at the Community Association Liaison Committee, CALC, of which Quadra City Hill is a member of that. After more meetings and consultation with the neighbors, a further letter was emailed to Lord Milne on February 23rd, 2016, reiterating the concerns of the neighbors and repeating the suggestion for a Good Neighbor Protocol to be adopted. The response was received back from Lord Milne on February 26th, agreeing to some of the items requested in the proposed protocol, but not agreeing to restrict the hours of operation desired by the neighbors of their property. Yet another follow-up meeting was held with a representative of the Elsa Lane Strata, residents of Greenridge Crescent, and 2 of the residents of Holford Street who live directly opposite the back entrance to 3934 Quadra on how to proceed. From all of this, the following positions were established. I'm going to read you again the mission statement.
John,
2.
could we wrap it up shortly?
Okay, so may I remind you, we have 10 minutes as a community association, Mr. Chair.
No, that's just in public engagement.
Okay, I'll wrap up here. To allow the residents of the area to experience the peace, quiet, and enjoyment of their homes in conjunction with the viable business operations of 3934 Quadra. In summary, problems have resulted from the operation of businesses in an industrial zone where the site is surrounded by residential. We were in a bit of a conundrum there. Hours of the operation for the storage business must be restricted. No 24-hour access should be allowed. Noise issues must be addressed. Full credit is due to Slaves for the positive reception regarding the UVic technology. The desire of the neighbors to keep Holford as a residential street must be recognized. Access should be from Quadra Street. And Saanich Council is requested to withhold agreeing to any terms requested in this application until the above issues can be addressed by the proponent. Thank you very much. I thought I had 10 minutes, but.
Good evening, my name is Art Beck. I live at 3544 James Heights, B3934 Quadra. The Quadra Cedar Hill Community Association has spent many hours to bring the parties together. We have still concerns about the applicant's lack of commitment to a good neighbor agreement. Bottom line, their response, they can't commit on behalf of their tenants. Yet, in his email of November 29th to Mayor and Council, Jordan Milne signed the email as President GMC Projects, Inc., and the attached letter as Director, Pro Storage Services Limited Partnership of Vancouver, BC. It appears the mind and management are one and the same. So why does the applicant choose not to enter into a good neighbor agreement on behalf of his own companies? Saanich. Saanich Planning commented that the attachments to the wall of fake orange doors were so generic in nature they did not qualify as a sign, rather an architectural feature. Yet again, in his letter of November 29th, Jordan Milne stated, quote, in point 5, the false overhead doors are an important part of helping to identify the building as self-storage, as a self-storage facility, and we require them to maintain the support of our business, end of quote. The applicant's statement argues that these fixtures are being used for identification and advertising purposes, which clearly put them back within the definition of a sign in your sign bylaw. We have to ask council, knowing the applicant's intent, how do these fixtures not fit into your sign bylaw? Parking. We asked Saanich Planning for a copy of the detailed calculation of parking requirements, only be told there was not one on file. So hard for us to audit that. Question. Has the current increase in the gross floor area created by the addition of a second floor self-storage loft inside the building being captured in the current parking calculation? It seems odd to us that an application could significantly increase the gross area of the existing building by adding a second story of lockers, add portables that take up parking stalls, and also add to the gross floor area, only to be efficient by 33 parking stalls. 33 stalls appeared at a glance to be the number of stalls lost by the installation of the parking self-storage portables alone. Further, the applicant has stated that it's their intention to expand the self-storage business, they mentioned that again tonight, if conditions were favorable. This would further increase the gross floor area when the second story is added to the remaining space currently occupied by Hedda and Slade. Where are these parking spots going to come from? Retail sales. It seems to us the applicant was trying to drink out of both sides of the straw. It wants operating hours, up to 24 hours for some clients, that are more consistent with a retail operation, such as 50 stores. But it wants to keep the lower parking requirements of the M1 zone. While retail sales are not defined in the bylaw, a retail sales area is. In your zoning bylaw, it is defined as, quote, that portion of the gross floor area used for the sale or display of goods and services to the ultimate consumer, end of quote. Since self-storage lockers renters are charged GST and PST, they appear to meet the test of sale of goods and services of the senior levels of government. We also note that the self-storage lockers are being rented to the ultimate consumer. A literal interpretation of the bylaw definition leads to the conclusion that the whole self-storage locker business is in fact a retail sales area under your current bylaw definitions. If that is the case, then the parking spaces would increase 12-fold. While the applicant argues that this type of business doesn't require so much parking, once council approves a major exemption for parking requirements, are these parking exemptions now grandfathered for other users? Further, we would ask council to satisfy itself as to whether the current application meets the test of, quote, zoning bylaw schedule 901.5b, quote, a a retail sales area for any business shall not exceed 25% of the gross floor area of buildings or parts of buildings which are on the parcel and used by the business, end of quote. If the proposed business model fits within the retail sales definition, as it appears to do, we would argue this application be subject to a rezoning application, as well as an amendment to the development permit application. In summary, our key concerns: the neighborhood agreement, signage, parking, retail operations. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
My name is Michael Goodman. I live at 3934 Elsie Lane. I spoke at the last committee of the whole. Subject to extensive discussion and the negotiations you've heard, we are wholly in support of the revised application. And I'd like to add to what Jordan had said earlier. One of the most important points that he neglected to mention when he was speaking is the sliding gate. The gate, which currently opens outward, they've agreed to make it a sliding gate so it doesn't obscure visibility. This is one of the most contentious issues in the last committee of the whole, and it's been resolved successfully. And from our point of view, we've covered the most dangerous and serious problems with the setbacks and everything. So we're 100% in support.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lenny Ross, and I live at 1017 Greenwich Crescent. I want to reiterate that because it's a big point, Greenwich Crescent, because I do appreciate all the great things that have been done by the Mills to accommodate the needs of the residents. Some of them have been fantastic. But you know, not any of them really affect Greenwich Crescent. Greenwich Crescent is up a hill from this site. Sound travels unimpeded up that hill, straight into our homes. Unimpeded because no 12-meter hedge that they're going to install will stop that. No cedar fence will help the problems on Greenwich Crescent. There's other misconceptions. Mr. Milne wrote to you in a letter on Friday that we should not allow a few individuals to dictate to us. This statement is not accurate. Today I submitted a petition opposed to the application that lists 20 names from Greenwich Crescent. That's just the east end of Greenwich Crescent. That's every home on the east end of Greenwich Crescent that faces onto this development. He also noted there are concerns. He said in that letter, our concerns are based on hearsay, implying we don't know the facts, and he implored you to instead listen to the industry experts when making your decision. I think it's a shame that such confrontational approach has developed, because we really started out by trying to support local businesses. We always do. I recently sent an email to Sleggs thanking them for reducing their hours of operation and their noise levels. And I also wrote a letter to the Mills supporting the efforts that they have made. They truly have a very professional approach. Unfortunately, our paths diverge in two areas. The first one is in them understanding the serious impacts to our health and well-being posed by the challenges of living near an industrial zone. I told Mr. Mill in December he was moving into an area where the residents are weary of repeated breaches to their peace that create untold strife, and how we have lost trust in the effectiveness of both business and bylaw to protect us. The second disagreement we have is in our approach to problem solving. How to problem solve around the issues of security and noise bylaw infractions. We, the residents, are advocating a more proactive approach, where steps are taken to change the circumstances ahead of time to avoid problems before they start. Mr. Milne's approach, however, is a reactive one. His approach is where you let the problem happen and you react to it. Let the noise infraction occur, let the neighbors be woken up, let them complain, let the Milne's security apparatus find out who the problem was and see if they can solve it. It's the same way the bylaw enforcement works. They are both complaint-driven processes that result in a flawed system in protecting our peace, because you see the infractions go on and on and on. Now, I am a 20-year expert in living as a neighbor to this industrial zone, and I know for a fact that complaint-driven process is broken. When you put in a complaint to bylaw, It's not an easy thing. They ask you, of course, to try to identify the source. The pro-storage security systems won't help because the noise could be from pro-storage or from the keg or from the Phoenix. Do you know that one Saanich worker actually told us it might be a good idea to go down there and take a picture? Can you imagine being told to go do that in the middle of the night? Another staff member wrote to me and said to go out and check and see if my neighbors are being disturbed as well. That does sound like an easy process. What you saw in that report that came from your staff about bylaw infractions is just the tip of the iceberg. I can assure you that many infractions are never reported, just suffered through. And this is why the reactive approach doesn't work. We ask the mills to consider proactive options. For instance, and these actions we know are based on neighborhood facts. For instance, we know that several successful local storage businesses do not run their businesses to 11 p.m. every night of the year, or allow even limited 24-hour-day access. So, couldn't the mills consider reducing their hours of operation? We also know businesses can close their doors on Sundays, like Lumberworld does. The mills could be proactive in other ways. They could hire staff to be there and control their clients, just like 24-hour grocery stores do. I know some other local facts that we should consider about this, about being proactive. Do you know that just a couple of months ago, someone tried to burn down Reynolds School? Only due to the fact that there was a proactively placed